let's see. Let me see where we're at here. Yep. Well, just hold on. Let me see where we're at. Yeah, I think we are live. Hello. Can you hear me out there? Yep.
I can hear you.
Yep, you can hear me, and they're out there. Yeah, I see. Come on in, Facebook. I'm going to bring you in just a moment there, Brenda. Just hold on. Come on in, Facebook. Come on in, Facebook. Come on in. Come on in. I see you signing in. I see you signing in. I see you signing in. Come on in. Come on in. Oh, we've got some good conversation ready for today. I tell you, we've got some good conversation ready for today. This is a day in history. So come on in. Come on in, Facebook. Come on in. Come on in. Yeah, my brother Mike, I want to hear you today. I want you to call in. I definitely want to hear from you, Mr. Man Up. Definitely. Come on in. Come on in. Look. We're glad. We're going to let y'all continue to come on in. But you all know me. I'm here at the Voices Rising Up Studios here. And as always, you can call in, join the conversation. We've got some good conversation today. Today is Inauguration Day. Our brother Mike just paged in. He said he's feeling patriotic. I think there's a lot of people in this country that's feeling patriotic on today. And I tell you, we're here today. We're going to be lined up all day from 9 to 10 a.m. We're going to have conversation. Then we're going to take an hour off. We'll come back at 11 a.m. We're going to have conversation. We'll take an hour off after that. Then we'll come back at 1 p.m. and we'll have a conversation. We're looking for the conversations to go. And then maybe 3 p.m. Look, we want you to call in. You're watching the inauguration, you're watching the festivities. You see something, say something. Call in, talk to us. Let us know what's going on. I've got a great lineup here today. Today I have from New Hampshire. Yeah, there she is on the screen right now, Mrs. Brenda Lett. I tell you, Miss Brenda Lett, I've been following Mrs. Brenda Lett for a while. She is a social justice activist par none. She works for our community, in our community, promotes our community. And it was a few years ago, for transparency here, let me say this is my cousin. I've never met her in person, but my cousin, she sent me a note. She said, you need to fight for reparations. And she kind of woke me up to this probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and I'd never met her before. And she made arrangements. Oh, when we have a family reunion, I want to get with you, right? But she's an activist par non out of the great state of New Hampshire. I didn't know black people was up in New Hampshire. But she's up in New Hampshire and she's fighting, and look, she's going to be on today, and we're going to talk about the community. And but first, let you see her on the screen there. Well, I'm gonna give her a chance. Why don't you go ahead on and introduce yourself, Miss Brenda Lett, and let us know a little bit about something about you, and we'll get this conversation started. Go ahead.
Good morning. First of all, I'm from Chicago. I just live in New Hampshire. But it's a pleasure and an honor to be on Facebook Live with my cousin, Reverend Henry, and his wife, Sister Jeanette. And I look forward to today's conversation. Again, originally from Chicago, moved up here maybe about 20 years ago with my husband, Willard Ladd, and our 2 children, Patti and Sudi, and still here. And it turns out we are here holding a line here, as we did in Chicago under the leadership of Lou and Georgia Palmer. So this is a great day, this inauguration. I look forward to the conversation. And my part is reparations now, full repair for people of African descent.
Now, you just brought up a name that's going to elicit a lot of memories here in Chicago. You talked about Lou Palmer. You said
Yeah.
you come up under Lou Palmer. That Lou Palmer, I tell you what, he is to be credited with so much black awareness and awakeness to the issues, especially in the Chicago area. You know, I grew up in the South, in Dixieland, and in the Mid South, and I didn't hear much about black history or black awareness or black what we can be. And I came up here when I came to Chicago. Lou Palmer had a radio station, a radio show on talk radio, and I would
Yeah.
tune in and listen to that. And he is responsible, I think, for waking me up, for one thing, for waking a lot of people up to the ills, the social justice ills. You know, sometimes you can get complacent, and you can get you satisfied, and because it's an innate ability, correct? As you learn to survive, then you
Yeah.
start to get complacent surviving, right?
Understood.
And
Understood.
and you don't necessarily think about all of the things around you that you possibly could have, and that you should have, and that you are just as entitled to as anybody else, right? You don't think about that. You think, hey, I'm surviving, I'm doing good, right? I'm fine, I'm doing good. And I think he woke up a lot of people to the fact that you are entitled to whatever you can work for, whatever you can get. You are entitled to just as much as anybody else. Don't sell yourself short. And so Lou Palmer gets a he's real high up on my list of heroes for us. You know,
Yeah.
he's a very
Yes,
high.
cousin, I'm with you. Lou Palmer was a mentor. He was a phenomenal brother and worker for social justice, as well as his wife, Georgia Palmer. Sister Georgia did quite a bit with the Ladies Auxiliary of Lou Palmer. She had Palmer plants that she used to sow those plants in order to fund the movement, because as we know, funding the movement can be a little challenging,
Yes.
because a lot of times people don't want to give money. But it was Lou Palmer and Georgia Palmer, as it is Sister Jeanette is there,
Mm-hmm.
as I work very closely with Bullard. The key to our reparations on this day and every day is that we, as people of African descent, we must figure out how to work together. We don't have to always agree. We don't have to always like what we are doing, but we need to figure out how to work together in order to achieve reparations for our next generation, as well as ourselves.
Okay, kind of.
But
Here's what I really want you to kind of expound on here. The reparations. When you say reparations, you know, I'm always into it, especially with a lot of Caucasian people that I grew up with. We don't owe you
Yeah.
anything. That's always the first words out of their mouth. We don't owe you anything. And
Sure.
then
Sure.
I see Mike says, say that for the people in the back. In other words, he wants you to talk louder, keep talking. But the very first thing that they always tell me, and I have them tell, we don't owe you anything. And I went back and forward with someone, because every time I see it on social media, I respond. Every time I see that, but give us a little background, a little basis, and why we should be so committed and dedicated to the fight for reparations. Why don't you give us a little bit of that? Tell us a little bit of that.
Well, one of the things that I'm in the process of right now is doing the kind of research that we really were able to do when I did some work with Lou and Georgia Palmer. We were pretty instrumental in doing some clinics that did some organizing around how to elect Harold Washington. And so a lot of organizing work went into that. So in terms of reparations, the National Coalition for Blacks the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, which is in Cobra. Um, um, we've been working over 30 years for reparations. Now, reparations means repair, right? And so we're not just looking for a check, which is why we say full repair.
Come on, come
And we
on.
have, yes, and we have 5 entry areas. We have criminal punishment, education, economic development, peoplehood, and health. And if you look to those 5 areas, and there are others, but Cobra is focusing mainly on those 5 areas. If you look to those areas, you will find that we need to work internally on those areas for ourselves. And there is a debt that the United States government owes, various corporations owes, as well as families owe to people of African descent because of enslavement, which, as most people know, happened over 400 years ago. But we are still in this process where people don't look at people of African descent as human beings. So they don't see us as fully human. And therefore, there's always this tug and pull about whether or not we're due anything. Well, we are due. We're due just as the Japanese were due, the Jews were due, because you know what? We are people as well. And in case, cousin, you don't remember, uh, the United Nations declared 2015 to 2024 the International Decade of People of African Descent.
Okay.
So as I started out, I'm in the process right now of doing some research in order to be able to succinctly and clearly be able to do what Lou and Georgia did, which is to make it plain, because it's a complicated matter.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, you said there were 5 areas. Criminal punishment, education, economic development. Give me those other 2 areas.
Health
Health.
and peoplehood. Peoplehood is actually our culture, which was taken from us when we were taken from the continent. So we were over there minding our business, living our life. We had ways of engaging with each other. We had our own religion, our own clothes, our own language. We were living our life. So when they took us from the continent and brought us over here, then our peoplehood was taken.
Okay.
And what you see now is a lot of our culture just comes out. I just read that Nancy Pelosi was saying that Trump needed to man up. Well, as you know, in our community, that's some of the kind of language that we use. And you now often hear a lot of our culture embedded into the U.S. culture.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Look, you can join the conversation. I'm here with Miss Brenda Lett, social justice activist and an HR 40 proponent and expert. And if you want to call in, give us a call. Yeah, you're the expert here. You give us a call at 312-798-9352. That's 312-798-9352. You know, as I said, you kind of woke me up to reparations a few years ago when you sent me a text and that we I should be working on reparations, and I started to look it up, and I actually read some things. I think I started out, one of the things that I really read that I think what also kind of gave me a motivation was Ta-Nehisi Coates' The Case for Reparations. I thought that was I found that to be very well written, substantiated. It was documented, and I guess for me, I can understand it being in Chicago for the time that I've been and seeing. I've actually gotten a chance to see the state of black people impoverished in the South, in Arkansas.
Yes.
And I've got the chance to see the state of the black people impoverished and having a problem here in Chicago. You know, so basically, and I could understand what he said when he started talking about the redlining, and when he started talking about instead of giving black people mortgages, you know, they gave them contracts, and when the contract was almost over with, you know, they found reasons to terminate the contract, kick you out of the house, and give the contract. You know, those type of things. You know. And so I find myself then, when I say reparations, I find myself defending it, or having to defend it against so many. How would I don't want to. I'll say ignorant, because ignorant means that you just don't have the knowledge. It doesn't. It's not an insult as much as it means that you just haven't. You're not learned on it. You're not learning the subject. And I have to defend it against so many ignorant Caucasian people that say you don't owe me, and so I try to bring it down to terms that they would understand, right? And
Yep.
and so and me being a minister, then I try to bring it down to terms I understand. And just about all of the people that have oppressed, suppressed, and depressed us consider themselves good Christian folk, right? And so once you break it down to something they can understand, then I try to introduce it in such a way that they would understand it as coming from someone Christian, right? So I said, this is what I told a girl just yesterday, someone I didn't know. That said, we don't owe you anything. I said, well, here's the thing. We worked for 400 years. We didn't get our wages, right? Those 400 years with no pay. Now,
Yeah.
you always saying we worked hard. My family came here and we did these things, and I don't have any doubt that your family did come here and your family worked hard and they did those things, but they got paid. They may not have got paid a fair wage, if you want to say that, but they got paid. We worked 400 years with no pay, right? And we worked under a system that was instituted and supported and enforced by the government, right? So if that's the case, then you can't tell me you don't owe me anything. Give me back wages, right? Now,
Well, cousin,
Yes.
it hasn't really quite been 400 years, because 400 years takes you up to 2019.
Uh-huh.
So there was a period, and this is why I'm gonna do research so that I can be clear about what it is that I'm saying.
Okay.
Because I understand that when you don't give the correct information, and this is no disrespect to you, cousin, but when you don't give the correct information, then people have a reason, or at least believe they have a reason then, to discount what you're saying. So the reality is, it wasn't necessarily 400 years that we got no wages.
Okay,
But the
399.
truth of the matter is, up until 2019, and even today, we know on many jobs that we are underemployed, that we don't get the max amount of money that our European counterparts get. We know that for a fact. But let me just say a couple of things. First of all, in Cobra, the female co-chair is Queen Mother Mashariki Jawanzi, and the male co-chair is Chicago's own Cam Howard. Cam Howard is also over the Legislative Commission. So what I want to be able to do before hour goes away, because it goes quickly as we know, is to let you know that for those of you who don't know, most of you may already know, that HR 40 was reintroduced by Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee
I saw that, yes.
in the 117th Congress. So she was able to reintroduce that legislation with 117 co-sponsors, which is unprecedented, because, as you know, the late John Conyers had been introducing it since like 1987. And so now here we are in 2021, and Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee has reintroduced it with 117 co-sponsors. As of yesterday, there are now currently 132 co-sponsors.
Sounds good.
So it's moving along, and our hope is to have the bill marked up. That's when the legislation go in and take it apart and look at the pros and cons and determine if it's going to move forward. So what we're going to be doing, we're pushing for HR 40 legislation, but we also look into the executive order that President Biden can do, so that we can have within the first 100 days of his presidency, so we can get him to do an executive order to do a down payment on reparations. So there are several organizations, not only in COPA, but there's several organizations that's working towards reparations. And our hope is that we will figure out how we can work together in order to deliver it for our people over these 4 years, which includes Biden and the last 4 years of the International Decade of People of African Descent. So the time is now for people of African descent to work together and to get reparations, which is repair for the injustices that's been done to us and continually. We all know about George Floyd and the millions of George Floyds and Breonna Taylor that have been killed. And so to get justice and to get economic justice, uh, because we're due it. So
Mm-hmm.
our hope is that more people will get involved in this movement and we're able to secure full repair.
Okay, now let me for clarity here. When I say 400 years, I'm rounding up, right?
I understand.
I'm not trying to be specific. I'm rounding up.
I got you.
But when I do that, I understand it hasn't been a full 400 years, but it's been so close.
Okay.
That's why I say. And so what I tell them, if you do owe me wages, right? Then I bring the Bible in because they are good Christians. And I said, well, you
Understood.
know, Zacchaeus said, if I owe any man anything, if I've taken anything from any man by false accusation, I restore to him fourfold. I said, so
Okay.
now, don't you believe that that's what the Bible says? So if you've taken something that by false accusation or by false means, according to that, you owe restoration fourfold. I get them there by doing that. Most of the time they shut up then because, you know, they're good Christian folk, you know.
Right.
You know,
And they don't want to go any deeper because the reality is they took from us.
Exactly. Exactly. Now you talked about HR 40, which is I think a really important point here. Is that HR 40, there you say 130 plus co-signers. Now, how many are you estimating that we're going to need in order to bring that bill to the floor? It would seem to me now that the Democrats or the liberals have the House, right? And
Yes.
it would seem to me that there should be a strong case and a strong period now to actually bring that. I think in the environment that we're in this country right now, I think you have to take opportunity when opportunity is there. You have to walk through the door when the door is open, right? And so I believe there's an opportunity right now, but how many more co-signers on that bill do we need to bring it to the floor?
Okay, well, in the 116th Congress, the one that just passed, we had gotten up to, I believe, 173 co-sponsors.
Okay.
So in answer to your question, you need about 210 in order to maybe bring it to the floor. But you don't need that many to mark up the bill. That's when it goes into committee and they begin to determine, you know, its viability, so forth and so on. So our next step with HR 40 is to get it marked up so that it can be a stronger bill, so that it can go to the floor and so that it can be passed.
Okay.
So there's an entire process with this political apparatus that they have here in the United States. And many of us, myself included, are not real clear on it. But we do know that we can be clear through study. And
Okay.
that's what I'm encouraging each and every one of the people that's on Facebook now to do your own individual study so you know what's going on and you can share that with your children and the people in your community as well as your churches.
Okay, I'm a big proponent of the check, and I'm just going to tell you right out front, and I'm going to give you my reasons why. And
Go ahead.
you're the expert on this, and you can probably give me some direction or give me some correction or whatever. But I'm a big proponent of a financial incentive and a financial gift to African American descendant of slaves, and I'll tell you why. Because we've had EEOC, We've had other things that were proposedly or supposedly designed and implemented to bring us up to par. And this is what I hear this from my white constituents all the time is everything's equal. You have as much opportunity and you have as much as I do now. The law is equal and all those things. And to a point, I understand what they're saying. But the reason I am a proponent of a check, a financial incentive, is because with all that has been done right now, from say when I think it was LBJ when he signed the civil rights legislation. I'll just take it from that point, right? If from all that has happened from there to now, and the black wealth is still a minuscule percentage of the wealth of our counterparts. That tells me that all of the equal rights bills and they haven't worked to bring us on equal ground economically.
Understood.
Why? Because
brother,
you cannot
I'm in total agreement.
You cannot take 400 years of my wages away, give me nothing but say I'm going to change the law so that you have the right to get the same job that I have and you have a right to do this, and then expect. We've actually seen the wealth gap, and I'll call it a chasm. We've actually seen the wealth chasm between us and it get wider, right? So you're going to have to do something drastic. You're going to have to do something radical. You're going to have to do something that immediately to actually close that gap, and then let everybody compete on equal ground. Now that's just my thoughts. You may want to.
Yeah. I'm in total agreement with your thoughts. And there is an and to your thoughts, not a but an and. So so when we say full repair, we do mean a check, right? But not just a check, because we know that money doesn't solve everything, right? Mm-hmm. And we know that in terms of human dignity, you giving me a bunch of money does not necessarily reinstate that. We know that the people who died at the hands of other, let's say, racists, that the money will not restore their life. So we know that it can't be money alone. So when we start looking at it, there are other economic ways. Example being, for the next 200 years, people of African descent don't have to pay income taxes. So when you get your check, they're not taking money out of your check. Mm-hmm. You get all of your money. Okay. That's just an example. Uh-huh. Another example is we could have all our student loans forgiven.
Okay.
And any federal loan forgiven for whether you got house repairs, you bought your house through the federal government. So there are all kinds of ways that we can get repair. So we don't want to limit it to a check, because for some of us, and I'm one of those, you can give me $100 and at the end of the day, I don't have $100. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, it can't just really be a check. It has to be more than a check.
I agree.
There have to be, and all of those kinds of things need to constantly and currently be worked on, and it'll come from the best of us when we work together on this particular problem that means that we have humanity.
Well, and I like the program. I like what you said, and I'm glad that I have you, because I'm going to have you from time to time come in and keep us filled in, and keep us motivated, and keep us focused in the reparations fight. I have to say I'm in total agreement. Look, if you want to join this conversation, you can call in 312-798-9352. If you want to join the conversation, you can call in 312-798-9352. The number's right there on your screen. I'm here with Brenda Lett out of New Hampshire, social justice activist and an HR 40. I call her, we used to call them SMEs, SME, subject matter experts. She's been on this and she's been working in this, and it sounds good. But I see a comment there from Brother Mike Wiley said, this sounds like the black agenda. It sounds like the black agenda, and it does. And I have to say, if you want to call in, call in. But I will have to say that it definitely, take. I have an uncle that say, oh, if you give us a bunch of checks, then you might as well go down and put the Cadillac dealer out of business and all those things. They don't give us much credit for how would I say it, dealing with incision or infusion of finance and economic development. But the reason I like the five areas of the program, because I believe in economic development. You need a check, but I think before you get the check, there should be some education.
You do need education.
Right. You need to be educated on it, or else, as you say, you get the check and then all of a sudden it's gone. There have been people that have won the lottery that were alcoholics that won the lottery and took all their money and just bought alcohol and for all their friends on the street. They don't know any better. They don't have any knowledge or any education in the matter. So we need to be educated on that. So yeah, and another big area is criminal punishment, justification. We know that the prisons are filled with black people who really shouldn't be there. Right?
That's true.
If the rules were applied evenly, either they shouldn't be there or a whole lot of other people should be there also. You can go either way.
True.
You can go there either way, right? And we saw this recently. We saw that a whole bunch of people basically raided the Capitol, a big bunch of people that did not look like us that raided the Capitol, and they were not greeted with the same greeting that the people that looked like us did just walking down the street peacefully in front of the Capitol, right?
Absolutely.
And so when you talk reparations, as you say, has to be full repair. Right. And we have been injured in so many areas.
Yes,
that reparations, the full repair, need to address all the areas of injury. And true, I'm a big proponent of a cash infusion or a check, but I understand that the check does not address every area of injury. And if you're talking full repair, then it has to be full repair. We were redlined against. I had a man tell me, a black guy, I've never experienced discrimination or racism before. And I'm thinking, just the very fact, if that's the case, if you've never discriminated racism, you should be sitting at the top of a Fortune 500 company, right? You should just go and, there's nothing to stop you. And so if you're not, and you've never experienced racism, then I say to you, then you are a very, very small, you have little motivation. Because if there was no obstacle called racism that stood in my way, I imagine I would be 5 million times higher in every area than I am right now. I mean, to me, that's just the reality. And so when my Caucasian friends tell me, well, we had a hard time. Look, it's not like I don't have much either. I said, that's your fault. You were in a system that was fixed for your advantage, and you did nothing with it. And if it'd been me, I would have done things a little bit different. But we need full repair, and we've got to get full repair, and there has to be some addressing, and I think Donald Trump half-heartedly addressed the criminal justice by letting a few high-profile blacks go free so that he could justify letting his people go free, that he wanted to go free. But as I tell people, as I tell people in the Bible, the Apostle Paul said in Philippians, he said, some are preaching the gospel because they are really sincere. And then some people are preaching the gospel because they know that I am the face of the gospel. And the more they get it out there, the harder they're going to make it for me. He says, so whether they're preaching it out of sincerity or whether they're preaching it to make it hard for me, I'm okay. The gospel is getting out there. And that's the way I looked at Donald Trump.
Right.
He let some of the people go. Whether he did it to set himself up for letting the people go that he wanted to, or whether he did it out of sincerity, he really thought that the criminal justice system in America was racist and biased. Whether he did either way, he let some of them go, right?
Yes, understood.
And so I'll go along with that. Now, with that in mind, what do you envision to be different about that fight the next 4 years compared to what it was for you the last 4 years?
Well, one of the things is being up here in New Hampshire is that because it's first in the nation, yeah, we get a lot of presidential candidates. And I was fortunate enough to sit in with soon-to-be Vice President Kamala Harris. And, you know, it was an NAACP thing up here in New Hampshire. And so we were able to sit with her. It was about maybe 14 of us. And so we were able to ask her questions. And I was number 2 to ask the question. So my question was around reparations.
Okay.
And I asked her if, in fact, she became president, she would consider doing either an executive order for reparations or signing a bill for reparations. And she said that she supported reparations. She thought that the people of African descent were due reparations. And then she went into an educational spiel. But I thought that was very good, and she actually was my candidate for president. So I feel very positive about her and Joe Biden being the new president and vice president. But I am not naive enough to think that they're going to solve all the people of African descent. That's not what they're up there to do. They're up there to work for the entire nation. It is up to African people of descent to help solve our own issues. And one of the major ones is figuring out how we work together, how we're more supportive, similar to the way we were in the South during the Civil Rights Movement. You know, we just really need to figure out how to come together and really be more supportive of each other. So I'm not looking to President Biden or Vice President Kamala Harris to do for us what we must do for us. I am, however, looking for them to be fair to us, and we're due reparations as a people of African descent.
Yeah, and you mentioned this, and maybe you can elaborate on this. You mentioned the United Nations, and I remember reading there was one of the United Nations committees that actually ruled some years ago that the African descendants of slaves in America are entitled to reparations. If I'm not mistaken, and maybe you can, I'm sure you understand. You probably know a bit more about this than I do. Well, you not probably, you do. Just because I'm a preacher don't mean I know everything, right?
The beautiful thing about that, cousin, is nobody knows everything.
Okay.
So the thing is, what I would encourage Facebook folks to do is what I've done, which is to go to the United Nations website.
Okay.
And you can find out all that information in there. But what I thought was, and this goes back to the God that I think we both love, and that is, you know, when I look at everything that's set up for us now as a people, things are set up for us in a way that says, it's on you, people of African descent, to push this thing further, to get the justice that you deserve, as well as for your next generation. You got the international decade from 2015 to 2024, which means we really have about 3 years left. We got the same amount of time that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris had. So we got 4 years to kind of pull everything together and to get this job done around reparations, whether it's a down payment and whether it's checks and loan forgiveness or wipe out, whatever it is, we need to have it, and we need to have it now. But it means that we need to do the research. We need to work with our families, our communities, our churches, our sororities, our other organizations, and we need to just make it happen.
And
We have the ability to do it.
and
So
I
we have to do something called self-love,
okay.
self-care. And the thing about health, let me just throw this in. One of the pieces around health, particularly, which is one of my challenges, and this concept of mental health. So people of African descent, we've been traumatized.
Mm-hmm.
That's the real situation for us. Every time we see a George Floyd, a Breonna Taylor, and all the rest of them, every time we hear about the doctor sister who's suffering from COVID
Uh-huh.
and told them what to give her, and they didn't give it to her, and she died.
Yes.
I mean, we got story after story. And so we need to do our due diligence and be prepared to speak truth to power to one another, to Europeans, Asians, whosoever.
Okay.
Because reparations now for repair.
Full repair. And you know what? I'm going to. As one, I'm really in for it for our church. I really want our church to be at the forefront of that in any community or anything around us about it, because we need it all. Eddie Phillips, why don't you call in? He's going to be our host this afternoon. Is telling you to preach. He said preach. But the full repair is definitely where we've got to go with that. And I think in the black community, though, if you want to be successful in anything, I believe you're going to have to come via the church. And the message has got to come out of the church, and it's got to come across the pulpit. Now, I know you probably saying that because I'm a pastor and I want everybody to be in church, but I think history has shown us that the church has been the heartbeat of just about everything that we've done, whether it was the civil rights movement or whether it was, even if I go back to Nat Turner's slave rebellion or Gregory Prosser revolution. I love that we're talking about Gregory's revolution. If I go about that, or if I even come into the 60s and 70s, whether you want to call it the church or religion, because you had Dr. King in the church, but you had a Malcolm X that was in Muslim Islam. So I think if the message is going to be comprehensively explained to the people, I think you do it from the church, because the people are listening. Black people listen to the church. They listen. People listen to their pastors. People listen to their leaders. Sometimes I wish they would listen to some of them, but they do, right? They do. And I think if the message is going to come, it's going to have to come through the church. And so pastors like myself have got to be educated, right? And we've got to approach things as if we don't know everything, and we're not the say-all, end-all on everything, that there are other peoples. You know, well, there are other people. One of the things that I understood and that I learned as a pastor, right, is that in certain areas of even of the church, I need people with expertise in those areas. Just because I'm the pastor don't mean that I'm the best musician. I'm not a musician. I'm not the best singer. I'm not a best singer. I'm not the best with the finances. I'm all of those things come to play, right? And so
absolutely. And I'm in total agreement with you that the church is a very primary institution within our community. And the other piece of it, though, is just one. So I'm saying, and I'm of the mindset that each and every one of those institutions are of value. So I'll just take you back to the Harold Washington days.
okay.
And one of the things that we did when I was much younger, right, is that we
You young
went
now.
out into the street, right? We went to bars. We went to bowling alleys. We went to where the people are. Now, we know that the people are also in church, but the people are also in student lounges, in colleges. So in order for us to move forward, we have to go where the people are. And where the church has been and still is viable, we have also recognized that there's racism in the church. So the Reverend Price wrote like 3 books on race, religion, and
Yes, he
racism.
did.
So
Yes,
in
he
terms
did.
of study again,
Yes,
I
he
would
did.
encourage your listeners to maybe either get a copy of those books and just kind of look at them. And I personally used to, when I would close my eyes and, I would pray to quote unquote Jesus, this image of the European guy with the blonde hair would flood my mind as African as I like to think that I am. And all of a sudden, Cousin Henry, it came to me that it wasn't even about the image of Jesus. It's about the spirit
Okay.
of what Jesus represents. So
Mm-hmm.
in that spirit is the spirit of doing the right thing, being a good person. And so that's what we're looking for when we talk about full repair. We're talking about a spirituality that recognizes us as human beings and we recognize each other as worthy and valued of being treated in a fair way. That transcends like individual churches, schools, what have you. So I do agree that the church is important, but so are other places.
Well, yeah, okay, because I understand and so are other places. But I have to ask you this, and this is why I say this, and I think, Brother Ed, one of the comments, Eddie Phillips said, the first building built in the free towns was the church, and that's why
Yep.
I think it was so. That's why it's so important when I go back and I look at the movement of the '60s, the civil rights movement of the '50s, '60s. I see the church was the heartbeat simply because the church were buildings that black people owned. Now,
Gotcha.
but there is a marriage and a partnership, because although the church were buildings that black people owned, and they were buildings where we could meet, and it was proper where we could do the things that we needed to do, it was those young students in the student unions that
Yes.
got on them buses. But when they took those buses down to Mississippi, where did the bus stop at? At the church.
Yes.
Right, because
A safe haven.
the safe haven, and so
Yes.
we that's why I say the church, that message has got to come out over the pulpit. It's got to come from the church, and we've got to, instead of denigrating these younger generations, we've got to bring them in and say, hey, we're on the same team, right?
Exactly.
You've got strength. You've got the strength, and you've got youth, and you've got abilities, and you've got skills that I never have, right? But I've got the wisdom of years. So if we could tie these two things together, and I get this from someone once sent me it was a meme, but it was a really little story. It was more than a story. It was T.D. Jakes was on Oprah's show. Mm-hmm. And when he was on her show, he was saying, you got to have the vision of the giraffe. He said, too many people got the vision of the turtle, and you'll never get anywhere with the vision of the turtle, but the giraffe can see way out. And they thought that was such a great revelation. And my point was, wait a minute. Why can't the giraffe and the turtle work together? Right? Because if the giraffe can see a long distance, right? But the snake
Right.
can be right there at his feet, and he miss it because he's so high up and he's so far down. So if he
Right.
works with the turtle and say, look, I'm looking way out there, and I'm going to warn you and keep you prepared what's up there. You keep a look below and close by, and you keep me warm. If they could work together, they could actually accomplish more than either one of them could working separately. And that's the way
Understood.
I look at it. If we can partner with these young, strong, wise young people, and we can pull them in, and I say this all the time, I may be of a different faith or a different religion from you, right? But that school that's in the middle of our block educates all of our community, all of our children. So
Right.
I can push that aside. Let's come together to make that the best school, right? Let's come together. Okay, I'm sorry. Go down.
Yeah. No. What I wanted to just share, because it, came over my spirit. So the thing is, cousin, since you are a pastor, one of my favorite scriptures is like 1 Corinthians 13:13.
Uh-huh.
Do you know that one?
Yeah, I know. That's the name of our church. Faith,
Oh,
hope,
okay. Well,
and
it talks about faith,
the,
hope, and love.
our
And
church,
then it
the name
and
of
then
our,
it says the greatest of
these,
is
yeah.
love.
The name of our church is Faith, Hope, and Charity Ministries.
Right. And in this concept, charity means love.
Yes, it means love. That's right.
Right. Because see, we don't want to confuse charity in this movement because that's what that person who was saying we don't owe you anything,
Uh-huh.
or that's what some of the Europeans up here in the New England area think that they're doing people of African descent by either giving you something or doing something in that in that kind of way. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like I'm not asking you to give me anything. I'm looking for what Martin Luther King talked about, which is justice. I'm
Exactly.
looking for you to do the right thing. I'm not looking for you to give me a handout. That's not
Mm-hmm.
what I'm looking for. I'm looking for humanity. I'm looking for love. I'm looking for caring about me and my community as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole different kind of attitude.
Yes.
And that's what repairing means to in Cobra and full repair and restitution.
Okay.
Those words, for me, I should say, more so than in Cobra,
Uh-huh.
means caring and love. And from there, you can handle any despair, right?
Yeah, I got you.
Because
I got
you learn to work through it.
Okay.
That's what family is about. You work through things.
Yes. I'm looking at a little bit of comments here. Brother Mike said we have to work on restoring the people's faith in the church. Brother Mike, hold that, because at 11 o'clock hour, we're going to be talking about race, religion, politics, and our community. That's right. That's exactly what we're going to be talking about. We have a Dr. Felix Davis who has a PhD in religious studies, and he's going to be my host in the 11 o'clock hour. But we're going to talk about restoring. He said we got to restore the people's faith in the church. Quinn Ethel Brown, she's a little biased. She said, my cousins, my family. She's a little biased to that, but she said we have to be united, and we do. We have to present a united a united front. And
Yes.
one of the things that our opposition has been very successful at is separating us.
Yes.
Separating us by things they've divided us on the basis of education. They've divided us on the basis of financial means, all the way down to skin color, right? Whether you're light skinned or dark skinned, we've been divided. And God forbids in the church. The church is the black church is a black church, but there are so many divisions based on water baptism, based upon whether you wear this or wear that. It's just so much. They've been very, very good at dividing us, right? And if we're going
Yes.
to make it if we're going to do anything, and if we are going to accomplish anything, we're going to have to be united and a united front. We may not agree on a lot of things, right? But we were all black before we were whatever we are, and we all suffered the injustices of being a black. That should be enough to unite us to fight for equality.
Well, it's just really about practice. You know that as being a pastor. It's about practice, meaning like we have to figure it out every day we get up in the morning. We have to practice, this love, this respect. We have to practice, study. We have to practice, so it's not about just a one-time kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a continuation of living, of making an effort to do the right thing, and prayer. I think prayer is very important.
Yes, it
and
is.
also leaning on our ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I opened up with Lou and Georgia Palmer, who was instrumental in my life in helping me to do the right thing. I didn't always agree with them, but I never once uh, disagreed with their love for people of African
Okay.
descent.
What?
So, so I think it's important for us to pray, to remember our ancestors, and to call on them. For
Mm-hmm.
those of us who feel comfortable doing it, I call on my grandmother Maggie. I call on my grandmother Mary. I
Okay.
call on my grandfathers as well as my parents.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to do that. And I think that we're going to be good because it's so written, right? That
Mm-hmm.
we overcome. You the
Right.
pastor, so it's so written.
But you
It's so
preaching.
written that we win.
I'm the pastor, but
It's
you
just
preaching this morning.
yeah, but it's just our job right now to do our part.
Yes, it
That's
is.
all we're doing. We're
Okay.
doing our part in time that we're here.
Okay. Well, okay. You know what? The hour sure goes really fast here, cuz. But it's been great. Speaking as I say, I'm going to have you from time to time to come on the show and come on, and we're going to talk about things, and especially we want to keep we want to be informed, and we want to monitor the not just I shouldn't say monitor, because monitor gives the idea that we're going to sit back and watch, right? But we want to
Right.
be totally
Yeah,
involved in the fight for full repair. And in
absolutely.
the fight for reparations, we want to be totally involved in that. And so, hey, I thank you for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
I'm getting comments, but no one's calling in. But that's okay. The conversation was good, and the supremacy and the last. Comment here say supremacy and mitigation is taught to our people every day. We have to
It's true.
pray, learn, and overcome the conditioning we encounter, right?
Absolutely.
And so, but it's been great talking with you. Thank you for just
Thank you.
carving out an hour of your time to spend
Sure.
with your little cuz here, and we're going to be in touch with you, and we're going to kind of keep use you to keep us informed and to kind of give us some direction in this fight, right?
Absolutely. It would be my honor, and understand that, we're holding the line in New Hampshire.
Okay.
Reparations now.
Reparations now. Okay.
Peace.
Look. Thank you for joining us, and
Thank you.
we will talk with you. We will talk with you later. Okay.
All
You can
right.
hang it
Take
up.
care, brother.
Take care. Now, look, we will be back. We will be back this afternoon. Well, not this afternoon. We will be back then at 11 o'clock. We back with Dr. Felix Davis, and we are going to be talking then about race, religion, politics. My cousin, that she alluded to Fred Price's books. That's something that I've really been on for years, right? And so we're going to be talking about race, religion, and politics at 11 with Dr. Felix Davis, and we're going to talk about the community, and we're going to talk about some of the things that Fred Price brought up, because I was really impressed by Fred Price's book when he introduced that book. It was so much so that he had his book forced the Dakes people to actually rewrite their Bible, because they had a lot of racist things in that Bible, and they had to go back and change those notes and those commentaries on a lot of them, and he still wasn't pleased because they didn't do it all. But we will be talking about that. We will be talking about that at 11 o'clock, and then at 1 p.m. I've got Dr. Eddie Phillips out of the Erudition Network out of Denver, Colorado. This young man he's totally committed to training the generations of black people to stand up and be who we are, and to be excellent and succeed. So look, this has been great. I see a comment, wonderful platform to hear the voices of my people. She hit some great points. Oh yeah. So we're going to be here. Hey, I'll say to everyone, it's at 10 o'clock. Watch what's going on. Call in and let us know what's happening. I actually got one of my monitors here on the inauguration, and one of my monitors here is on what we're doing. We appreciate everyone that tuned in. Thank you for all your comments. We will be back in an hour with Dr. Felix Davis. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
That was nice.